Hello, and welcome to the Cafe Nightly Show. I'm your host, the Goldsmith. It is the 4th of October, 2024, and it is the fulfillment of Spark Weekend. We did have the announcement yesterday. We had the reality of Spark listing or Sparklet listing. So we do see what Sparklet for sale inside of Upland looks like, how pricing actually works out. So it's just kind of described by Upland, the 2-week rolling average of pricing, kind of reflected, because there's something interesting, a couple of interesting things about the way the Sparklet was priced in the game of Upland, both in the sizes that were available, the bundles that were available. Good evening, Six Weeks. Good to see you. The bundles that were available and the pricing for those bundles, because there's some math to be done there. Again, also that means the Sparklet weekend has started, so there is some things there to do this weekend if you haven't done yet. That is upgrading your account status. If you've earned it, now is the time to click the little button and move up and rank yourself up. Yes, the Sparklet show is absolutely right. And then we'll go into, I guess that's about it. I mean, realistically, that was our 2 fulfillments. We're into the month. We've already talked a couple of things about Sparklet, but and a couple things with harvest season. But at the moment, again, it is definitely worth seeing Sparklet available in Upland, seeing pricing, seeing quantities, and going over that in a few different ways, because, again, that is the one thing that happened today. But it is a walk forward in the future of Sparklet availability in the game of Upland, but also what Sparklet overall means both inside and outside Upland, and how those two kind of tie together. So let's get the disclaimer out of the way. All views and opinions expressed by myself, they're mine and mine alone. That should be taken as game strategy or financial advice. They represent game of the team of Upland. Any contributors who we do have on, they have their own opinions, so welcome to them. They should not be taken as game strategy advice. They should not be taken as something that necessarily agreed by the team of the game of Upland. Don't necessarily represent my own opinions or those of the Cafe Nightly Show. Easy enough, get that out of the way. I am in the process of popping Upland up, because in Layer 1 Upland, that is where the news is for the day. Live updates, take a look at the specials, take a look at the extras. Oh my gosh, look at that. And we have a sellout. So let's take a look at the Sparklet sales, because again, that is the one piece worth talking about for the day, because all the news of the week has already happened and been released. 180 Sparklet could be yours for the price of $9.99. 341 Sparklet could be your price for $19. Could be yours for the price of $19.99. Or you could get 880 Sparklet for $49.99. I'm zooming in so my eyes can see a little better. And of course, 1,796 Sparklet, yours. Oh no, it is not an option. Sorry, for $99.99 was the original price. They are sold out. There was 50 of the bundles for the 1,796 Sparklet. There was a total of 780. There was a total of 100 of the 341 Sparklet, and there was a total of 100 of the 180 Sparklet. Now here's some math. Let's pull up a calculator. Here's the basic math. So if I want to figure out what the price of Sparklet is in any given moment, when we look at these bundles, we can always take the amount of Sparklet. In this case, for our lowest quantity here, 180 Sparklet, and it's for $10 or $9.99. That gives us a price. Oh, well, we know we can do this. Again, we're going to divide that by the $10. There we go. We know we can do that. Come back over here. And we get, like I said, 180 Sparklet for the total of $10. That is $10 divided by 100. And come on, you can do this. Divided by 180 Sparklet for those $10, and we're going to end up with a price about 5.5 cents is what each of those Sparklets coming out to. Again, 5.5 cents. So 5.6, 5.6 cents if we want to round up in an earlier state. Or we could let's look at the other bundles here. So for the $19.99 or the equivalent of, let's call it $20, make it easy, we'd get looking at 341 Sparklet. And now this is a higher price. And, again, the assumption would be if you buy the lower quantity, you get a slightly higher price. So you get a discount by buying more than one bundle. That doesn't seem to be the case here. I don't know who did the math. I don't know if it was easier to do it one way versus the other. But it seems to not have that that bonus effect of oh gosh, here we go. We get a little bit of a bonus benefit for buying the larger bundle. And we used to get a benefit from buying the larger bundle. If you buy the 880 Sparklet, it's 5.68 cents as opposed to 5.5555 cents. It is a better deal to get the 880 bundle than it is the 341 bundle. But again, it is one of those things that who came to with the exact number, the math, it's a little off. They could have done a little better job of setting that up. Again, 1796, which is fully sold out. But for $100, getting 1796 Sparklet, you are looking at that being about 5.56, which is the second best value, second to 180 Sparklet. There is a cooldown if you do go and buy one of these bundles. The reality here is, again, I think the math was just a little wrong. I mean, it was a little cutesy about the way they chose the amount of Sparklet. I think it could have been done a little different scaled, so you get a little bonus for getting a little more Sparklet if Upland was going to do that. But again, ultimately, now that Sparklet is sold on exchanges, the idea of being a strong discount for a large volume, that doesn't make sense in the same way as it used to, because there isn't a determined price. There is a market price, and market price doesn't change with the quantity that you're buying. Generally, market price tends to stay the same if you're buying 100 or 10,000. Sometimes there's a loss of efficiency when you buy 100, where there is a difference in gas fees, and sometimes it's easier or less expensive to gas 10,000 of something, at least on a per basis, than it is on a per basis to gas 100 of something. So I can see that being a little bit of a discount to do the large amount than the smaller amount on a per Sparklet basis. But there isn't going to be a huge discount. It's not like Upland's going in discount, or should be going and discount individual Sparklet by these bigger bundles, because again, we're talking about a commodity at this point. That's what Sparklet is. It is a commodity that moves on the scale based on what the market is calling for, and if there's a difference in demand and of supply that is available in one place or another, one ecosystem or another, or the utility changes significantly, which again can influence demand, that is going to be something that really is important here, not so much the bundle buying. Again, bundle buying to affect demand could be the case, but not necessarily a differentiated price at that point if you're looking at buying something at the exact same moment. The 1796 96 Sparklet bundle sold out. There was 50 of those available. The interesting thing on that is that's a larger bundle than we've ever had before in these in-store sales. Previously, there's one Sparklet. 1796, obviously a larger quantity than one Spark ever was. So one Spark versus 1796 Sparklet. The other thing that is interesting about that is, technically speaking, even though we're talking about a much lower price, that 1796 goes further than the one Spark used to. As of right now, the utility hasn't really changed significantly. One Spark is one Spark. It is just that the organization is 1,000 Sparklet to that single Spark. With these bundles, again, it is kind of funny to see that the 180 Sparklet bundles can't sell out 50, but the 1796 can. It's a one and done thing, right? You could go and buy, you don't have to wait in between. People go in and buy one bundle. By loss of efficiency, because there's a little bit better discount on the 180. You could be losing a few Sparklet along the way, about 50 Sparklet along the way, by buying that 1796 bundle as opposed to a bunch of the 180s. But it's up to you, as if it's what makes sense. But it's kind of interesting that those haven't even been able to sell as many as the larger bundle had. For $10, 180 Sparklet is enough to get started building. It could be pushing somebody on the side of they're being able to build or start one type of structure and maybe push them to that next level. The interesting thing is that at $10 price point, well, the utility you're getting now is very different than it used to be for a $10 price point. There wasn't a $10 price point in previous Sparklet sales, which is kind of fun because you're buying this in the game of Upland. You may not be interested or capable or set up with the experience of buying and selling a token outside the game of Upland, a crypto outside the game of Upland, but if you are trying to look at utility-based Sparklet use, again, $10 is the lowest cost we've ever had a bundle for it in the game of Upland for Sparklet or Spark. And now that 180 Sparklet has the same utility, or more utility, I should say, more utility than the previous zero point 0.1 Spark did, or the 0.05, which was a previous smallest bundle, for a higher price. The 0.05 Spark was a higher price than the 180 Sparklet. And again, at $10, it's much more accessible for people who are just looking at gaining just a little bit more, or just starting out and just getting started with Sparklet. So I'm excited to see that as being an option there. As Upland did say with this announcement ahead, they are going to kind of look at perpetually having Sparklet up, with the caveat that they're going to adjust the amount they have up at any given time and potentially remove it from market depending on the demand and the price, what the current price is. I can see it, and it makes sense to me. I'll be honest, I did have a buy point myself where I wanted to buy a bunch of Sparklet if it hit a certain price. The current price at, let's go take a look at the market. In the market, realistically, right now, it was 5.8 cents yesterday. Let's take a look today, with the reality that Sparklet changes on a day-to-day basis. With looking at a 2-week rolling average, we're going to see that it might be a different 2-week rolling average than the current price, but at 5.7 cents, which again is a little bit above where we're seeing the majority of these pricing. That is much higher, or is higher than where my buy point previously was. I don't hope Sparklet doesn't change or go down in a significant way. I mean, again, there's a lot of people who are buying it at this point and hoping it doesn't go down. But if I hit my buy point, I would probably at this point, given the value, given the idea of not having to gas my Sparklet to get into Spark, or get my Sparklet into Upland, and the fact that I'm ultimately going to use any Sparklet I get in the game of Upland, I'm going to buy it in Upland as opposed to buying on exchange and bringing it in. That's just my personal opinion at this point. Realistically, price for price, it seems to be a better value at this point in buying an Upland, just because I don't have to gas that Sparklet to get it into Upland. I will eventually have to gas it out if I do decide to sell it. Keep in mind that once you buy this Sparklet, it does take a holding period, essentially over the course of 90 days, for the previous 60 of the 90, the front-loaded 60 of the 90 days to have essentially 50% staking time, about half the time over the course of the first 60 days being staked, that Spark being staked somewhere on structures in the game of Upland. Question from Happy Jack: curious if purchasing in-game affects the market price in the same way that purchasing from an exchange with buy, sell, and sell orders. So again, not speculation, not saying what the market's going to do or not do, but ultimately, if people were otherwise going to buy outside the game of Upland, the price that's in Upland is lower than that, and that demand is being satisfied by purchasing in the game of Upland instead of out of the game of Upland, that could have a negative effect on the pricing. At the same time, if this is a differentiated market, again, not telling people how to look at the pricing, but if this is a true differentiated market and people are buying in the game of Upland that wouldn't otherwise buy out of the game of Upland, and they sell out in the game of Upland, that affects the small group of people, or a group of people who could have bought neither. And if they can't buy in the game of Upland because the quantities available are all sold out, then that might push their demand to the overall marketplace. And if that pushes their demand from the game of Upland to the overall marketplace, that might create a increased demand on the overall marketplace or outside the game of Upland, which could push the price of Upland's Sparklet up. Again, keep it in mind, the two are connected. What's happening outside of the game of Upland is going to overall determine the pricing for the Sparklet inside the game of Upland. There is a efficiency lost to buy your Sparklet outside the game of Upland and bring it into the game of Upland. And when your Sparklet is in the game of Upland, it is going to have a requirement to be met, to be fulfilled, before you can eventually take that Sparklet from in the game of Upland and move it out. This is something that is going to be a little bit of a play where that friction of taking Sparklet in and out of Upland is going to help lock Sparklet one place to another. Somebody who has Sparklet as a token outside the game of Upland may consider the reality of what it looks like to bring Sparklet in and then back out again of Upland if they are going to bring that Sparklet into Upland in the first place. Somebody who buys Sparklet in the game of Upland, they're going to consider the realities, the cost of bringing Sparklet out of the game of Upland if they were ever to do so in order to try to sell it. So that is going to be something that is going to have a role and play a role long term. But at this point, it does create that marketplace outside the game of Upland exchanges, allowing people who don't want to go to that marketplace, who don't want to worry about the exchange or the import fees, the fees associated with bridging Sparklet into the game of Upland. It takes those people who are worried about that reality or who don't want to have a wallet and gives them an option to buy Sparklet at a price that's very similar to what they could buy in exchange. And as long as that's going on, as long as that continues to go on, that gives Upland, and this is something that I keep saying, that gives Upland a source of revenue that is not related to making me pay for every little map asset that Upland wants to come up with. And it gives them an opportunity to make an income without me having to go and pay USD for these bundle sales. I could have more opportunity to pay in UPX. Upland can sell more in UPX for NFLPA or more in UPX for the Stock Car Pro Series potentially, and they can continue to have a revenue here. Again, selling Sparklet as a revenue, that's why Upland has a certain share that they were going to keep of Sparklet so that Upland could sell it. And that share of Sparklet, they have a pool in a way that with burning, Upland can acquire that Sparklet to potentially resell. So there's a bunch of mechanisms here that Upland had built into the Sparklet sale, the TGE, the original release of Sparklet that could potentially create this long-term income for Upland to churn Sparklet, where people are burning Sparklet to put long-term, not available now, to mint legits, and people have those legits as an NFT they can sell, and that is a method of using your Sparklet to get something from Upland. You're buying something from Upland with Sparklet. That Sparklet would go back into Upland's pool. Theoretically, they could take that Sparklet and resell it as opposed to treat it as a burnt and non-acquirable asset or put it into a burn pool. So that's going to be an interesting concept long term. I think that Sparklet is a potential income for Upland long term because they as a company, not individuals, not the employees, but Upland as a company does have a share, a pool of Sparklet that they can sell, which again continues to be a revenue for the game of Upland. Happy Jack, yeah, that's a good perspective. Yeah, exactly. It's two different markets. They may affect each other. They may not. It depends on how differentiated the market set is. The people are going to be in each of those two markets individually. And the other thing that I do want to put out when we talk about the sale of Sparklet is this does open up, and Upland has to give the possibility and the demand, grow the demand, or at least sell the demand, the existing demand to people who are coming in. This does create the opportunity for people who miss the TGE. Keep in mind that there are continued airdrops specifically for people who participate in the TGE. There are going to be 2 in harvest season and 2 in Wonderland season. There's going to be one on the 30th of October. We're out of September now. 30th of October and the 15th of November. Then on, let's do my math right, December the 30th and then the 15th of January. There's our 4 total airdrops. Those are only for the people who were participating and had earned a certain amount of Sparklet at the time of the TGE and then held that Sparklet in the game of Upland. Those people, myself included, can get up to 4 airdrops. And my math tells me I can get a decent amount of Sparklet on each of those 4 airdrops. It's going to be nice to do so. And if I were to put a numeric value based on what the current price is, that's a decent amount of money for my continued participation in the game of Upland. I'm ultimately not going to turn around and try to sell that at any point immediately, but it is going to be nice that I'm going to have that utility in the game of Upland. Excuse me. And it saves me from having to turn around and buy some Sparklet today because I know I have some more coming. But if Upland sells the demand here correctly, it gives an opportunity for people who aren't currently in the game of Upland, who are in the sandbox community or in another partner community currently, or who see Sparklet available outside the game of Upland, get interested in the tokenomics of it, get interested in the utility of the token, and then say, here's Upland. It gives the opportunity to sell this to them in the game of Upland, to give them the utility of having Sparklet in the game of Upland, and they could play Upland and see what the what the realities is and how the staking works and what the rewards are for building structures in the game of Upland and what they can do with all that gamified layer. And if those people are true crypto people, they may also be buying Sparklet outside the game of Upland, participating and being part of those exchanges and buying it as a crypto token, while at the same time having utility for an Upland. And maybe if the utility exceeds what they associate the value outside the game of Upland in their wallet, they might bring it in and bridge it in, or they might treat it as two separate sides of the same coin, where there are two different things they could do with that same token. So this gives and opens up a new opportunity for bringing new people in the game of Upland. As we've talked about before, that was part of what Upland had talked about or considered when they talked about TGE, is opening up the token in a different way, the Sparklet token in a different way, does create the opportunity for new players who weren't previously interested in the prior model, or who are already in the crypto world but not in the I'm playing games world, or in the crypto games world but not in the mobile first world that Upland originally appealed to, and kind of brings those two communities together. So looking forward to seeing what this does, what this helps do with Sparklet being available in-game as a purchase, essentially at the same price as buying it outside the game, what that does for new player acquisitions or engagement of some of the players we already have who aren't progressing or haven't been significantly progressing in the game up until now. We're going to take a look at one more thing and call it a night, because it is a Friday and there's only so much news here. Sparklet Weekend did start yesterday. To go over a couple of the details, as it is an ongoing event. So the Sparklet Weekend did start yesterday. On the note of the Sparklet Weekend, we do want to put out there, and it is worth remembering that this is something that's only done during seasons. So right now we're in harvest season. So every weekend during harvest season, we're going to have a Sparklet Weekend. When we get to the end of harvest season, the 15th of November, Sparklet season, wow, harvest season, we're going to get to the 15th of November for this first Sparklet Weekend season of harvest. The 15th of November, then you have a rest period until you get to the Wonderland season. So between now and the 15th of November, every weekend, we are going to have a level up event. The level up event is the opportunity to take your status in Upland, upgrade it if you have reached a certain level, and then take that opportunity to do it in that weekend and get a reward. The reward in excess of what level up generally is. Leveling up status in Upland, for many of the levels, not all of them, has a specific reward tied to it at any given time. Pro to Director is 500 Sparklet. From Director to Executive is 1,000 Sparklet. From Executive to Chief Executive is 2,000 Sparklet. If you do that level up specifically during a level up weekend or a Sparklet weekend, you get a 20% bonus for the level ups from Executive to Chief Executive, from Director to Executive, and from Pro to Director. There are two status upgrades that never have Sparklet unless you're in a Sparklet weekend. That's Visitor to Uplander and Uplander to Pro. Those rewards are available to you if you start in the game of Upland, start playing the game of Upland, upgrade your status, or prepare to upgrade your status. You don't hit the upgrade button until you're inside a Sparklet weekend, so you can get 30 Sparklet for going from Visitor to Uplander, and going from Uplander to Pro, you get 120 Sparklet. Again, only if you do that upgrade during a Sparklet weekend. We are currently in the Sparklet weekend. It did kick off on Friday, 9 a.m. PT, and they normally go until Monday at 9 a.m. PT. Because this is the first weekend and logistics, everything with the first weekend, it actually goes till Sunday, October the 6th at midnight PT cutoff. So that's this weekend, abbreviated Sparklet Weekend. Future Sparklet Weekends are going to come up, of course. But again, this is just according to Upland to accommodate for some important updates. So my guess is that we've got some updates kicking off over the weekend on Monday, from Sunday into Monday. So we're not going to do the updates. So we're not going to have the update happening during that Sparklet period, the Sparklet weekend. So we stopped the Sparklet weekend a little early. Easy enough. That's it. And I say that's it because usually we have one or two announcements. No announcements here, technically. We just actually saw the price of Sparklet in the game of Upland because that got listed. It was for sale. It is for sale now if you choose to go and buy it. Reality is it is a little lower price than the current price because, again, it is following the historic price over the last 2 weeks. If the cost of Sparklet goes way up in a couple days, Upland can always change what Sparklet's in the market or pull it off the market. But it could have gone up a little bit in the last 2 weeks, and the average pulling itself down based on what happened earlier in that 2-week set. And you could have a lower price today than you have on the outside the market. You could have a lower price inside of Upland than outside the market, and vice versa, depending on the way that 2-week trend is traveling. You just keep that in mind. Keep watching things, buying as you wish to do so. And of course, if you are new to the game of Upland, this is your opportunity to acquire some Sparklet to see what it does. And a $10 bundle is not as extreme, or it's not as high a price for entry as it used to be. So it's a nice thing to see. For tonight, thank you so much for being here. Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. PT. We do get together looking at the daily news in Upland, a little bit of perspective along the way. So more interviews starting next week because, oh boy, have I missed them. And that does mean that we may be having some different guests on over the next couple of weeks as I try to, scratch that interview bug. But otherwise, if you're in the Upland Cafe Discord, feel free to unmute your mics. The floor is yours.